You've been on 15 first dates this year, different apps, different friend setups, even a running group you joined specifically to meet people, all different places, all different people. Same shallow pattern every single time. Now, you might think you need better discernment, stronger intuition, clear standards or boundaries. But here's what I want you to consider: the problem isn't actually your judgment. The room you walk into is filtering for a consciousness level before you even say a word. Today, we're going into the one variable you may not have considered yet. Hi, I'm Stephanie Fligari. And for those of you, you may already know that, but for those of you that are new or just tuning in, I'm a relationship coach for divorced women. And I help you understand why you keep attracting the wrong partners by revealing the patterns running at three levels: mind, body, and energy. What you believe about yourself and love, how your nervous system responds to care and consistency, and the frequency you are broadcasting. You're probably, or you've probably been told the pattern is your picker, that your ability to read people, your boundaries, or your discernment, right? But I want to invite you to look at something else entirely: the space itself. Today, we're exploring how environment pre selects consciousness level, what different spaces are calling forth, and what shifts when you start choosing strategically instead of defaulting to what feels convenient. Now, think back to a few months ago. Maybe you deleted the apps and committed to meeting people in person, joined a book club, maybe, started going to networking events. You met people through friend setups. You changed the method, different venues, different approaches, different ways of connecting. And the same surface level pattern kept happening. You thought in person would be different from apps. You thought curated environments would attract better people. What you didn't change was the mechanism underneath. The spaces you chose were still calling forth performance, evaluation, or surface level consciousness. Different rooms, but the same frequency. Now, to understand why, we need to look at what's actually happening to your body the moment you walk through a door. Or, excuse me, to understand this and why, we need to look at what's actually happening to your body the moment you walk through that door, right? Now, every physical space broadcasts a specific frequency, and that frequency calls forth a specific consciousness level in the people who show up there. Your nervous system, excuse me, scans your environment constantly for safety cues. Now, research on polyvagal theory shows this happens automatically before your conscious thought. Loud spaces activate a sympathetic response. You become alert, guarded, your senses heighten, and quiet spaces allow the ventral vagal activation, which is connected, present, open. The room signals to your body which state to enter before you consciously choose it. Now, take a bar, dim lighting, loud music, alcohol acting as a nervous system suppressant. Your body registers these cues and shifts. Your guard drops, inhibitions lower, focus narrows. This isn't bar energy. This is your nervous system responding to environmental signals designed for temporary relief, not sustained presence. Now, apps work the same way. Swipe mechanics reward snap judgments in under 3 seconds, right? The structure itself trains rapid assessment over slow discovery. Before you message anyone, the platform has already filtered for efficiency mode, not depth mode. Now, here's the principle: environment pre selects consciousness level. The space you choose is filtering for who shows up there and what state they arrive in before you even interact with anyone. Now, once you see this broadcast happening, you can begin to assess what each space is actually calling forth. Now, we are going to do a quick assessment of common places that you may have done or maybe even considered, right? Now, we will start with coffee shops. Now, coffee shops broadcast low risk consciousness. They're convenient, public, easy. It's an easy exit, right? The setup itself communicates careful evaluation, not openness. Two people assessing whether the other is worth a second meeting. The coffee shop didn't create that dynamic, it called it forth. Now, bars, on the other hand, broadcast altered state consciousness, nervous system suppression through alcohol, sensory overload through noise. You might feel immediate chemistry, but 3 dates later, you realize you have no idea who they are beneath the performance. Now, next up is the dating apps, right? Which broadcast efficiency consciousness, visual assessment before conversation, gamification of connection. The people aren't shallow. The medium is calling forth shallow engagement. Networking events broadcast performance consciousness, achievement focus leading conversation, vulnerability guarded behind accomplishments. The person isn't being fake. The room is calling forth professional self over authentic self, right? Now, watch what shifts when the environment changes. Bookstores, for an example, you may go on the weekend or a weekend morning, which broadcasts contemplative consciousness. It's quiet, unhurried, curious, even. Someone browsing philosophy on a Sunday morning operates at a different frequency than someone swiping apps on a Sunday night. Hiking groups broadcast presence consciousness, moving together, nature as focus. Conversation happens while doing something else. Authenticity surfaces when performance isn't required. Now, take farmers markets. They broadcast community consciousness, slow browsing, sensory engagement, small exchanges with vendors. People people there are seeking quality over efficiency. And maybe hobby classes, right? And those broadcast growth consciousness. The learning mode is activated. Vulnerability. I cannot speak. Vulnerability normalized through being a beginner, where patience is required. You meet someone in a pottery class, and you're both terrible at centering the clay. You may laugh, you may make mistakes together. The class called forth curiosity and patience, not evaluation and judgment. And maybe even a community garden, right? And that broadcasts contribution consciousness, the hands in the dirt, working side by side, building something together. When you eventually go on a date with someone from that space, the depth is already there. Now, maybe it may be a volunteer event. Now, that broadcasts service consciousness, working toward shared purpose, ego reduced through focus on others, presence over performance. This realization leads us to a pivotal question. What are you choosing and why? Now, the shift isn't about learning to choose better people in the same rooms. It's about choosing different rooms that call forth the consciousness level you're seeking. We often choose based on convenience. Apps feel efficient, coffee shops feel safe, bars feel fun. Those are valid reasons, and there's nothing wrong with that. But convenience isn't calling forth depth. Safety isn't calling forth vulnerability. Efficiency isn't calling forth slow discovery. Now, you might notice you've been optimizing for the wrong variable. Strategic selection means asking a different question, not, is this convenient? The question becomes, what consciousness level does this space call forth? If the space calls forth performance, you meet people performing. If the space calls forth escape, you meet people escaping. If the space calls forth presence, you meet people who are present. From an energy alignment perspective, every space broadcasts a frequency. The space you choose is filtering for consciousness level before you say a word. The aligned partner isn't spending free time on apps or at bars. They're at the bookstore Sunday afternoon, the hiking group Saturday morning that we talked about, right? The farmers market, the pottery class, the community garden, spaces where people show up and grow and be present, or who show up and are present, right? Now, here's what you need to see clearly before anything shifts. And the recognition is this: you've been choosing spaces based on convenience, efficiency, or what feels safe. Those spaces call for surface level performance or escape consciousness, not because something's wrong with the people, because that's what those environments are designed for. The pattern isn't your picker. The pattern is the rooms you keep walking into, right? And here's the choice: you start choosing environments based on the consciousness level you're seeking, not what feels convenient or safe, right? And you ask yourself, what does this space call forth? Presence or performance, depth or transaction, growth or escape. The aligned person exists. They're not in the room you've been defaulting to. They're in the spaces that call forth presence, curiosity, contribution. The moment you start showing up there, the consciousness level available to you shifts. You stop meeting people at their most surface. You start meeting people at their most present. Here's what I want you to know: you wouldn't be watching this if you weren't ready to shift something. The fact that you're here doing this work, understanding these patterns at this level, that matters. Subscribe for our next deep dive on the unconscious patterns running your dating life. Every other week, I cover a new topic or a new pattern. Now, drop a comment and tell me which part of this deep dive hit hardest. And if you want live access to all the teachings, have real-time Q&A with me, and a community of women doing this work alongside you, join our private Facebook group. The link is in the description, and the patterns can shift. You're already proving that. You are already proving that by being here, right? See you in our next one.